Unveiling the Sinister Secrets of the Caldwell Estate, 100 Years of a Cursed, Haunted Legacy. The moment Rachel stepped into the Caldwell Estate, she felt the weight of history heavy, oppressive, almost suffocating. The grand foyer echoed with the distant whispers of those who had come before her. She had hoped for a fresh start for herself and her children, but the air felt electric with something unseen and sinister. Little did she know, it wasn't just the past that lingered. Something more malevolent lay in wait. The first night, shadows danced on the walls, mocking her attempts to reclaim happiness. With Annie and Jake tucked safely in bed, Rachel attempted to convince herself of the charm that once drew her to this ivy-covered home. The moonlight filtered through the tall windows, but as the soft breeze rustled the leaves outside, an unshakable chill swept through the house as if it beckoned her, warning her of the horrors that awaited in the darkness. During the day, the Caldwell neighborhood appeared idyllic. Children played without a care, and neighbors exchanged friendly smiles over white picket fences. But when dusk approached, the smiles faded, replaced with furtive glances directed at Rachel and her children. The whispers grew louder, and she could feel the neighborhood's tension wrap around her like a shroud. As she walked to the nearby park, she felt the prickle of eyes on her back, an unsettling reminder that secrets were best left buried. Then there was the attic, the very place she had avoided since moving in, stowed away almost like the very history she tried to escape. But one evening, after a particularly tough day of sorting through memories and moving boxes, she heard giggles. At first, it sounded innocent, but the relentless echo transformed from childlike laughter to something far more sinister. Panic surged in her chest. Was it her imagination? The wind playing tricks on her? Or something more? Before she could calm her racing heart, an old, frayed newspaper clipping caught her eye as she ascended to the attic. Caldwell family's pact with darkness, a trade of wealth for despair. The ink was blurred, but the message was clear, a legacy that promised riches at the cost of innocence. As she read, the temperature dropped, a cold sweat trickling down her spine. Was that a footstep she heard? Her instincts surged, she needed to know more. Each creak in the house echoed louder as she descended, filled with dread. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The next few days passed in a blur of fear. Rachel forced herself to visit a local diner, desperate for a semblance of normal life. But instead of comfort, she was met with muttered stories: family pets vanishing, shadows slipping between trees, and darkness creeping beyond the streetlights. The words turned her stomach, a growing unease coiling tightly within her. When Mr. Thompson stopped by, his smile failed to reach his eyes. His polite small talk was laced with a veiled threat, warning her to stay away from the past. She felt the air grow dense, like a storm brewing just out of sight. Annie, in her innocence, then revealed seeing friends at night, watching her from the shadows, their hollow eyes piercing through the darkness. Rachel's heart raced, her resolve wavered. Some monsters were real, and they were lurking in her new home. The walls of the Caldwell estate seemed to pulse with life, an insatiable hunger waiting to consume them all. What were the true costs of their new beginning? And could Rachel unravel the dark legacy before it was too late? Rachel hardly slept that night. Each tick of the clock echoed through the stillness, a constant reminder of the hours dragging on. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. What pact had the Caldwell family made? And what had they sacrificed? The questions spiraled into a maelstrom of fear, punctuated by Annie's innocent words and the ominous weight of Mr. Thompson's warning. As dawn broke, a thread of cold light seeped through the curtains, but it offered no comfort. Despite the day, the house felt dark, as though the sun dared not shine on its cursed walls. Her resolve hardened. Today, she'd confront the whispers and shadows. She needed answers. She started in the attic. With each creaking step up the rickety stairs, dread pooled in her stomach. The air felt thicker, almost alive, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for her return. As she stepped into the small space, the atmosphere enveloped her, full of secrets. Dust motes swirled in the shafts of sunlight, but all Rachel could see was darkness lurking in every corner. Tension crackled in the air. The giggles were gone, but their echo clung to the walls like a thick fog. She rummaged through boxes filled with faded clothes and broken toys, desperate to find more than just relics of a forgotten life. Then, a small chest caught her eye. Its latch was rusted, almost like it didn't want to be opened. She hesitated, every instinct screaming to turn back, but curiosity pulled her closer. With a shudder, she popped the latch. The chest creaked open, revealing old letters tied with a fraying ribbon. She undid the knot with trembling hands, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the silence. The letters told stories of wealth and prosperity, of parties that lasted until dawn and laughter that echoed through the halls. But then, the tone shifted. Dark omens crept into the words, mentions of strange occurrences and unsettling dreams that plagued the Caldwell family. Whispers warned of a curse, a burden carried from generation to generation, demanding blood and despair in exchange for comfort and riches. A chill coursed through her as she read about a hidden room in the house. It was said to contain the very essence of what had been sacrificed, a place where shadows came alive, feeding on memories and fears. The letters spoke of an incantation, a way to break the curse, but at a terrible cost. She had to confront what lay within. Rachel's heart raced, weighed down by the prospect of what she might find. She glanced back at the staircase, where light barely penetrated the gloom. She could feel it calling her, the unseen thing lurking just beyond her reach, whispering promises of revelation. Annie's giggles flashed in her mind, a reminder that curiosity had its price. Suddenly, footsteps echoed on the floorboards below. Fighting to catch her breath, Rachel froze. Were her children awake? But as she carefully descended, the atmosphere shifted again. Gone was the innocent laughter, now a chilling silence engulfed the house. She peered into the living room, a sense of foreboding creeping in. The room was empty but felt packed with something intangible, something sinister. Her pulse quickened at the thought of confronting whatever awaited her. Suddenly, the front door creaked open, a faint whisper brushing against her ears. "Help us." The voice was soft, almost a plea, and it curled around her heart like a vice, squeezing. Who was there, and what did they want? She stepped closer to the door, nerves electrifying her every movement. Dread washed over her as she crossed the threshold into the new world beyond the old estate. What had she just unleashed? What shadows awaited her outside? A terrifying realization settled in, the answers she sought might cost her everything. And as Rachel stepped outside, the weight of history shifted, and the true game began. The air outside was thick, heavy with an unsettling stillness. Rachel took a hesitant step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The shadows of the house loomed behind her, stretching long as though the very fabric of time had begun to unravel. She could feel the pulse of the estate beneath her feet, each heartbeat a whisper, beckoning her back, urging her to flee, but something compelled her to move. Perhaps it was the eerie enchantment of the curse that bound the Caldwell family, or the tantalizing mystery of the hidden room that promised answers. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her shaky breaths. As she stepped away from the safety of the porch, the muffled silence consumed her like a shroud. The street was empty. Not a single soul in sight. Yet the wind carried faint murmurs, ghostly voices weaving through the trees and curling around her, teasing her senses. Help us, they beckoned, coaxing her deeper into the unknown. Who is there? Rachel called out, her voice trembling. No response came, only the rustle of leaves that seemed to carry laughter, bitter and haunting. She hesitated, but the corner of her mind, a corner filled with terrible curiosity, forced her onward. The path led her past the remains of other houses, structures warped by time and neglect, their windows like lifeless eyes watching her every move. She could almost feel their former owners lingering, trapped in a state of sorrow and dread. It wasn't just the Caldwell family that suffered, the entire neighborhood had been touched by the curse, their whispers merging into a cacophony of despair. A sense of urgency surged as she moved closer to the center of town. If there were answers to be found, they would lie where the memories lived the strongest. Old taverns and marketplaces, their wood worn down by the passage of time, beckoned her like sirens with their siren songs of forgotten joy. Then came the rumble, a low, sinister growl that made her freeze. The ground beneath her trembled as though something great stirred beneath the earth, awakened by her presence. Panic clawed at her throat, sharp and insistent. She glanced back towards the house. Did she make the right choice? But before she could decide, the ground split open with a deafening crack, as if the very foundations of her reality were giving way. Rachel stumbled back, her feet slipping on the gravel road. A stream of darkness erupted from the fissure, snaking toward her like a living thing. It reached out, tendrils stretching and curling, whispering her name in a chorus of eerie voices. She felt a cold sweat break out on her brow, her instincts screaming at her to run. Rachel, they called, almost sweet with mockery. Come closer. We've been waiting for you. But deep down, she knew that whatever lay ahead was more than just a chance to uncover secrets. This was a confrontation with all that had been hidden, with shadows that thrived on fear and sorrow. Just then, an apparition materialized from the darkness. A figure, half-formed, with hollow eyes and a gaping smile. It reached out a hand, beckoning her forward. The grotesque image flickered, almost fading away, before reappearing with an urgency that made her skin crawl. Join us, Rachel, it hissed, voice like gravel, echoing the very fabric of despair. The sensation of it enveloped her. She could feel herself being pulled into the abyss. With her breath hitched in her throat, Rachel took a step back, heart racing, knowing she had a choice to make. If she turned away now, she might escape the curse. But if she pressed forward, what price would she have to pay for the knowledge she sought? The figure's grin widened, the shadows pulsating with a hunger that threatened to consume her. She could feel the pull of the darkness, and it felt intoxicating. Should she confront the nightmare, or flee while she still could? And with every heartbeat, the shadows urged her onward, promising she would never be alone again. Rachel, they whispered, their promise echoing in her mind, your destiny awaits. The shadows writhed, a chorus of whispers urging her deeper into their embrace. Rachel's instincts screamed at her to turn and run, but her feet remained rooted in place. It was as if the darkness held her with an invisible grip, each heartbeat pounding louder than the last, drowning out the creeping panic. Rachel, the call was both chilling and alluring, wrapped in a deceitful warmth. She felt drawn to the figure, its hand still stretching out, a promise of understanding laced with despair. We can show you the truth. For a fleeting moment, part of her wanted to reach out. The answers she sought felt just within her grasp, every mystery of the estate, every twisted tale of sorrow and loss. But did she truly want to uncover the veil draped over the Caldwell family? Could she handle the weight of the truths that shadows might reveal? Suddenly, the ground shook violently, the fissure widening, exposing the yawning darkness below. Rachel staggered as a sharp crack echoed through the air, almost drowning out the whispers clamoring for her attention. Panic surged through her veins like ice. This was no invitation, it was a snare she could almost feel tightening around her throat. No! She shouted, her voice piercing through the din. I won tea. But mere defiance felt feeble against the impending darkness. With every ounce of strength, she spun on her heel and sprinted down the dilapidated street. The whispers intensified, rekindling their hungry chorus as if they were angry with her for resisting. Come back! They hissed, their voices weaving together in a frantic song of despair. You cannot escape who you are. Each pounding step felt like an echo of her fears, an unshakable knowledge that the shadows might not let her go so easily. She hesitated only once to glance over her shoulder, her heart plummeting as she saw the dark figure dissolve into a swirling cloud, slipping into the ground that had released it. The shadows lingered, dark tendrils curling like smoke behind her, skimming the asphalt as if searching for her. No, she gasped, desperation clawing at her throat. As she ran, her surroundings blurred, the once familiar landmarks morphing into a nightmarish landscape where reality and illusion intermingled horrifically. The cries of the once happy townsfolk echoed in her mind, their laughter twisted into cries of anguish, stretching across the air like frozen tendrils of sound, binding her to the fear she fled from. Rachel stumbled upon a weathered door, half hidden behind ivy and rubble. It seemed to pulse with life, an unassuming portal amidst the chaos that surrounded her. The door promised a respite, sanctuary from the swirling dread. Without a thought, she shoved it open and plunged inside. The musty smell enveloped her, thick and suffocating, as shadows crawled along the walls, weaving an intricate tapestry of despair. The dim light revealed a cramped space cluttered with old furniture, dust motes dancing in the air, and the silent echoes of forgotten memories. Rachel. The whispers followed her inside, softer now but even more insistent. They seeped into the very crevices of the air around her. You can't hide. Her heart raced as she scanned the room. Desperation tore at her as she spotted a flickering yellow light coming from beneath a trapdoor in the far corner. Could it lead to answers? Or deeper into a fate worse than she could imagine? The whispers felt stronger now, wrapping around her like a shroud. She had to decide. Did she possess the courage to open the trapdoor and face whatever lay in the depths below? Or would she succumb to the pull of the shadows outside, entwined in their malevolent grasp? As she hesitated, a fierce pounding erupted loudly against the trapdoor, the echoes of all the souls consumed by the estate, begging for release, or revenge. With the weight of fate in her hands, Rachel took a shaky step toward the door, her breath hitching. What secrets would the darkness reveal if she dared to look? The trapdoor loomed before Rachel like a gaping maw ready to swallow her whole. Her pulse quickened as the pounding intensified, like a heartbeat drumming in her ears, a relentless reminder that time was slipping away. She could almost feel the cold breath of the shadows wrapping tightly around her, coaxing her to stay hidden, to succumb to the familiar terror. A tug of fear pulled her back, yet her curiosity outweighed it. What lay hidden below? Shadows swept through her mind, hints of the aspirations twisted by despair. With trembling fingers, she reached for the rusted handle, feeling the sharp edges against her skin, a warning or perhaps an invitation. The door creaked like the groan of the earth itself as she pulled it open, dust cascading down like ashes settling on a grave. The yellow light flickered with an unsteady glow, casting elongated shadows against the stone walls. She felt a chill crawl up her spine, a warning that she had crossed an unseen threshold. With a deep breath, Rachel stepped down, each creak of the old stairs echoing her resolve. The air grew thick as she descended, cloaked in an eeriness that felt almost sentient. The shadows danced around her feet, whispering secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. At the bottom, the room widened, revealing a cavernous space that felt both ancient and alive. Cobwebs hung like veils, shimmering faintly in the dim light. Old portraits lined the walls, faces of stern figures watched her with pitiless eyes, unblinking, as if judging her very existence. She shivered, suddenly aware of their silent scrutiny. "What do you seek, girl?" A voice cracked from the corner, its tone gravelly and distant. Rachel's heart raced, but her feet remained planted, rooted by curiosity and a flicker of fear. She turned slowly, meeting the gaze of a figure hunched over an old wooden table. It was a man, his face shadowed but worn with age. The outlines of his features were sharp, and his eyes glinted with a knowing light. "You are drawn to the truth, are you not? Who are you?" Rachel's voice came out shaky, breaking the thick silence. "I was once a keeper of this place, a guardian of secrets long buried," he rasped, pulling away from the shadows, revealing a tattered coat and a long beard. "You tread dangerous waters, child." Rachel felt both dread and anticipation surge within her. "I need to know about the Caldwell family." A low chuckle echoed in the space, harsh and teasing. "Not all knowledge is meant to be uncovered. Some truths come at a price." His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "Do you think you can bear what you find?" The question hung in the air, palpable and heavy. Could she? As a child, she'd never been afraid of shadows, but this was a different kind of darkness, one that gnawed at her insides. She felt vulnerable, naked under the weight of the man's gaze. From behind him, Rachel noticed a large book, ancient and tattered, lying open. Symbols and strange words adorned the page, emanating a strange energy that tugged at her. They flickered in her vision like embers waiting to ignite. "Open it," the man urged, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that set her nerves on fire. "See what lies within." Against every instinct, Rachel stepped closer. Her heart hammered in her chest, her breath coming in quick bursts. She reached for the book, fingertips brushing the surface as tendrils of darkness writhed around her hands, quickening her pulse. What if she was taking a step too far? What if the truth turned the shadows from whispers into screams? Just as her fingers grazed the aging paper, a sudden crash resounded from above, splintering wood, and the echo of anguished cries flooded the chamber. Her heart dropped. The nightmare was not confined to the estate, it was breaking free. Now she stood on the brink of revelation and horror. Would she wield the answers, or would they ensnare her like the shadows? The man's smirk twisted further as the shadows thrashed, the echoes of the past racing toward her as if the estate itself was ready to reclaim her. "Will you uncover the dark legacy of the Caldwell family, or will you run?" he challenged, holding her gaze like a vice. As fear and desperation surged within her, Rachel knew she had only moments to decide. She could turn and flee into the chaos above or plunge into the abyss of truths that threatened to drown her. In that moment, the decision weighed heavily. What darkness awaited her in that book? What horror might she unleash? The choice lay before her, teetering on the edge of fate. Rachel hesitated, her fingers hovering just above the tattered pages. The air was thick with anticipation, a living entity squeezing her chest tighter with every passing second. Her eyes darted to the man, his silhouette flickering between fear and something darker. "What if I want to run?" she whispered, uncertain now. The man's lip curled into a smirk, an unsettling confidence rippling through the room. "It's too late for that. You've already stepped into the depths of their curse." But the sound of splintering wood above her filled her ears again, an urgent, chaotic clamor. Shouts echoed through the desolate chamber. Her heart raced, a tattoo of panic thrumming against her ribs. What if whatever was above had found its way to her? What if it was coming for her now? "Listen to their cries," the old man croaked, leaning closer. "They warn you or beg you to stay away." The pull of the book intensified. She felt drawn to its darkness, as if it were a bottomless pool of secrets ready to engulf her whole. But just as quickly, she felt the raw tension from above, a clash of lives teetering at the edge of chaos. "What is happening?" Rachel gasped, struggling to stay rooted. "What did you do?" The shadows behind him swirled, as if alive, whispering her name. "I merely keep the gates," he replied, his smile unsettling. "The truth has a way of spilling out when provoked. You can't escape its grasp." "I didn't ask for this." Rachel shot back, voice quivering. "And yet, here you are." He motioned toward the book, fingers trembling with urgency. "Open it. Find your answers, but remember, every truth rends a veil and sometimes reveals more horror than you hope to bear." Above her, the crashes now turned into unearthly shrieks. The energy shifted in the cavern, thickening the air to an almost suffocating weight. She could feel each scream reverberating through her veins, pulling at her conscience, dragging her toward madness. "Rachel," the old man urged, his voice imbued with an ominous edge. "The moment has come. Are you ready to learn what the Caldwell family did to harness their legacy?" "Stop!" she cried, knowing her voice was a feeble lance against the chaos. "You act as if this is some twisted game." "Perhaps it is," he shrugged, amusement flickering in his eyes. "But the real game is played above, where chaos reigns, and you have the chance to either break the cycle or be consumed by it. Choose wisely." The shadows writhed more aggressively now, flowing over the book's edges, threatening to pull her down into the depths of confusion. Rachel could taste the adrenaline, her senses heightened as the air vibrated with warnings from another world. What if opening the book unleashed whatever horror was now scrambling above her, confronting her with truths she wasn't ready to face? Or worse, what if it linked her to that chaos, intertwining her fate with the bloodline wrapped in darkness? The determination surged within her, raw and undeniable. She had to find out. With a swift resolution born of desperation, she leaned forward and pushed the book open. The air crackled, static buzzing around her as the shadows flared in shock, but then, with tearing intensity, a thunderous roar erupted from above, drowning out the very fabric of her thoughts. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Rachel's breath hitched. What is it? Prepare for the truth. The old man yelled, laughter ringing in her ears as he faded into the shadows. With a shivering dread, she braced herself against the chaos. She felt everything around her collapse, as if the walls themselves were imploding, drawing her into a swirling vortex of fear and revelation. What had she unleashed? A voice, a deep, throaty growl rose above the chaos, echoing through the chamber like a bell tolling for the damned. You should have never come here. She was locked in place, unable to move, consumed by the encroaching darkness, held captive by the shadows of the Caldwell estate. And then came the whisper, smooth and chilling, "You're already a part of us." The floor beneath her cracked as the shadows swelled, preparing to drag her into elongated depths of nightmare that awaited just beyond the pages. What price would she pay for uncovering the truth? As the cracks spread outward, swallowing the light, Rachel knew she was at the heart of a darkness far larger than herself. But she had to know, what terror awaited her next. The book opened with a creak that reverberated through the hollow chamber, the ancient pages fluttering as if they possessed a life of their own. Darkness surged forth, eager to fill the void left by the old man's retreat. Rachel's heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the menacing screeches from above. The swirling shadows danced hungrily, clawing at the light, gritting her teeth. She forced herself to focus, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the fragile paper. Dread seeped into her bones as the first words came into view, written in a spidery script. In the heart of every truth lies betrayal. A violent tremor shook the ground again. The very walls seemed to moan, lamenting the secrets trapped within these pages. Rachel took a sharp breath, torn between the urge to flee and a morbid curiosity that propelled her to read on. With each line, the history of the Caldwell family unfurled, revealing tragedies woven into their legacy. Stories of loss, betrayals drenched in blood, and sacrifices made to appease a darkness they had summoned themselves. Footnotes spilled into horrifying whispers, almost unrecognizable but cutting through her like glass ghosts of children who had vanished, the cries of the damned echoing in the night, and a dreadful pact sealed with ancient power. What happened to them? Rachel murmured, grappling with the horrors laid out before her. A scream erupted above, louder now, and she pressed her hands to her ears. The shrieking grew, piercing her consciousness like a knife. A part of her wanted to shove the book shut, to escape the gnawing terror, but another part craved the very knowledge that could save or doom her. Suddenly, the words on the page morphed into eerie images. A child's laugh twisted into the sound of despair, a family portrait tainted by shadows that wrapped around their necks. Panic raced through her. They moved through the estate, she whispered, connecting the two worlds, the past and the horror creeping into the present. The shadows coiled tighter, swirling and shifting, as if responding to her growing understanding. She could feel them pressing against her skin, cold and clammy. A deep, rumbling growl sounded again, louder this time, closer, sending a chill slithering up her spine. "You're awakening them," a voice hissed from the dark, jagged and sinister, vibrating through the very air. Rachel's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" she stammered, eyes darting to the shifting shadows. Was it the old man? Or something else lurking just beyond the light? "The truth calls them," the voice crooned, drawing closer. "They've tasted souls before they yearn for more." At that moment, Rachel flicked her eyes back to the book. It was right there, the answer she sought, but could the truth really set her free or merely chain her to a legacy of torment? Spurred by an impulse filled with dread, she began to read louder, voices mingling in a cacophony of chaos. The pages suddenly erupted in flames, a bright orange light illuminating the chamber, forcing back the dark. Her breath quickened as she staggered back, the shadows howling in agony at the sudden brightness. Would this be a salvation or an even greater curse? But the real horror was just beginning. As the flames flickered wildly, a figure began to materialize, hovering above the ground, cloaked in shadow, eyes fiery and intent. It was there, watching her, waiting. "What have you done?" The apparition rasped, the words slithering into her consciousness. Rachel could barely breathe. What had she awakened? What connection was drawing her down this cursed path? Desperation curled tightly in her gut, the air thick with malignant intent. The flickering flame died quickly, plunging her back into darkness, but now she knew she wasn't alone. "Your fate is sealed," the voice echoed, surrounding her, clawing at her sanity. And then she felt it, cold hands grasping her shoulders, pulling her deeper into the shadows. What had she awakened beneath the Caldwell estate? What awaited her when the darkness enveloped her completely? The darkness closed in around Rachel like a thick fog, suffocating and heavy. The cold hands gripped her shoulders tighter, numbing her skin, freezing her breath. She stumbled backward, heart racing, but the shadows drew her in deeper, as if the very essence of the estate was alive, hungry for her fear. She fought against the grasp, clawing at the air, but it was useless. An invisible force held her captive. "Let go of me!" she screamed, the sound swallowed by the void. The shadows only tightened their hold, pulling her closer to the source of that horrific voice. "Answer the call," it beckoned, a sickly sweet tone laced with menace. "Your knowledge will bind you to us." Rachel's eyes darted around, trying to spot the apparition, the one who had spoken just moments before. She strained to recall the chilling words of the book, the family's gruesome history. Betrayal. Blood. Sacrifice. Were they calling for her? Suddenly, the dark swirled, revealing half-seen figures, distorted faces twisted in anguish, mouths open but silent. Wisps of their hollow cries echoed faintly, like a broken record that replayed the last moments of their lives. "Help us, save us," they whispered, their arms outstretched. But all she felt was the insatiable hunger they emitted, infecting her very being with dread. "No." Rachel gasped, shaking her head. "I can't help you." As the shadows writhed, the room grew colder. A chorus of wails filled the air, rising and crashing like waves against a cliff. It was overwhelming. She could barely think. She needed to escape, but would running away truly help her? The words of the book flashed through her mind, the secrets and betrayals of the Caldwell lineage. Perhaps the only way to banish the darkness was to uncover the truth. The estate hid. In desperation, she raised her voice against the shadowy entities. "What do you want from me?" The words hovered uncertainly in the air, swimming in the fog of despair. "Learn it, live it, or join us," came the echoing reply, a cacophony of many voices merging into one chilling intonation. The temperature dropped even further, and Rachel felt her fingers start to numb. "Why is it always the innocent that pay the price?" One specter murmured, the voice tinged with agonizing sorrow. "We were all betrayed, trapped within our own desires." The shadows pulsed, filling the chamber with a sinister luminescence. Rachel's mind raced. She remembered the old man, the stories he told about the estate's legacy and the mysterious deaths that had plagued the Caldwell family. Was it punishment? An insatiable cycle of curse? With renewed resolve, she gripped the book tightly, the only beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. "I'll find out the truth," she said, her voice stronger, defying the whispers. "I refuse to be a part of this madness." As the echoes of her vow faded, the shadows roared in retaliation. Tendrils of black twisted and snapped around her, desperate to silence her defiance. She could barely see through the gloom, but a stark glimmer caught her attention, a faint outline of a door, ajar, leading further down into the estate. Could it lead to answers? But before she could make a move, the cold hands tightened again, dragging her back. "The truth is never free," the voices hissed, reverberating through her bones. Rachel yanked herself away, summoning every ounce of strength, and stumbled toward the opening. The shadows surged forward, clawing at her, furious at her escape. She darted through the doorway just as freezing fingers grazed her arm. The moment she crossed the threshold, the shadows screamed in collective agony. Pushing herself further into the unknown, Rachel strained to keep her footing as she plunged into a dark corridor, distant whispers trailing behind her. She had entered the heart of the estate, and with it, the core of its darkest, buried secrets. What awaited her in the depths of the Caldwell Estate? What horrors would she uncover as the echoes of the past clawed their way into the present? The corridor felt alive, quivering beneath her feet as Rachel pressed on. The air thickened with a stench that clawed at her throat, some foul mixture of mold and decay. Every step seemed to pull her deeper into the estate's dark heart, where secrets lay buried beneath layers of dust and despair. That a flickering light filtered through a few warped windows, fighting against the oppressive gloom. Rachel squinted, trying to center her thoughts. She needed to remember the purpose of this frantic search. Beyond the darkness, there had to be a key, a binding truth, that linked her to the restless souls she had seen. The whispering returned, a low hum that resonated in her bones. Find the altar, discover their fate. The voices urged, blending into a pitiful symphony of loss. She shook her head, willing them away, but they threaded through her mind, tying knots of fear and urgency. Past nondescript doors, she discovered herself in a wide chamber, echoing with the sounds of a long-forgotten time. Scattered on the floor were remnants, the rusted remains of an old altar draped in tattered black cloth, along with an array of faded photographs. She knelt down, heart pounding as she inspected one image more closely. It was a family portrait, faces half hidden, a tangible glimpse into the Caldwell history. With a cold shiver, Rachel recognized the same twisted faces she had seen in the dark. They were smiling, but their eyes betrayed a deep sorrow. These were the spirits begging for release. Suddenly, a sharp snap cut through the air, and Rachel jumped back, eyes wide. The book she carried had slid from her fingers, landing open on a page marked with an intricate symbol, the Caldwell family crest, surrounded by ominous runes. The words on the page glowed dimly, drawing her nearer. Blood must pay for truth, it read. Beneath the inscription was a detailed account of the family's harrowing sacrifices over generations, sacrifices made to keep the darkness at bay. Rachel's breath quickened. Was this why the estate echoed with grief? The Caldwell legacy of betrayal wasn't just a tale, it was a pact made in blood, a horror that was never meant to be broken. No. She whispered, horrified. This can't be real. The realization clawed at her mind. This family, her family, had fed something vicious and insatiable to preserve their lives. And that something still hungered for more. As she backed away, a shadow stirred at the far edge of the chamber. It coalesced into the figure of a woman, her face gaunt, eyes hollow pools of despair. Rachel's heart raced. The spectre's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, the room filled with the bitter scent of smoke and burning flesh. Leave! Rachel shouted. Her nervous edge frayed. This wasn't just a place of history, it was a trap. The air became toxic with the weight of unseen eyes watching, every instinct screaming for her to run. Your fate is intertwined, the apparition mouthed soundlessly, pointing a skeletal finger toward the far wall, where hidden behind a heavy tapestry was a door that seemed to pulsate with malice. Rachel hesitated. Perhaps it led to the truth, or perhaps to her demise. The soft rustle of fabric echoed as more shadows gathered at her sides, nudging her towards the ominous entrance. What lay beyond the door? Answers. Doom. Heart racing, she fought against the urge to flee. Was this her moment to confront the family's dark legacy, or would she become another whisper amid the shadows? With one final glance back at the void behind her, she pressed forward, grasping the cool surface of the door with trembling hands. Was it time to uncover the truth, or had she already sealed her fate? As Rachel pushed open the heavy door, it groaned on its hinges like a wounded beast, revealing a secret chamber swathed in darkness. This place was alive with a chilling energy, each breath heavy with foreboding. The shrill whispers within her head grew louder, echoing the pulse of the estate, a slow rhythm of dread that quickened with each step. The air inside quivered, and for a moment, Rachel thought she could hear the distant cries of past victims' children, mothers, and fathers all trapped in the legacy of despair. With trembling fingers, Rachel reached out, her heart pounding as she filled her eyes with the murky depths of the chamber. Cobwebs swayed like lost memories, and a sense of despair wrapped around her like a thick fog. As her gaze swept the room, she noticed an altar at the center, covered in dust yet unmistakably sinister. Above it hung a tattered banner, the Caldwell crest glinting eerily in the faint light, a mocking reminder of the curse that haunted her family. Time felt suspended as Rachel took step after cautious step toward the altar. With each movement, wisps of shadow curled around her legs, constricting her as they feasted on her trepidation. "What do you want from me?" Rachel shouted, the words slamming against the walls, reverberating through the silence that pressed down on her. "Legacy," the shadows whispered in chilling harmony. "Your blood is the key." As the words sank in, a surge of understanding split through Rachel's fog of fear. She was the last in the Caldwell line, the last chance to end their cycle of torment. The pact tainted every fiber of her being. This moment was not merely about discovering the truth, but about accepting the heavy burden that came with it. Desperation morphed into clarity, something sharper, clearer, and with an undeniable purpose. Rachel squared her shoulders and stepped closer to the altar, the warm glow of rising determination flickering within her. "I want to be your pawn," she declared fiercely. The shadows recoiled as if slapped, hissing and writhing in furious discontent. Their discord grew louder around her as Rachel remembered the incantation from the letters in the attic. She had the power to break the curse, but it required sacrifice. It required her to confront the very darkness her ancestors had embraced. Steeling herself, she grasped the edge of the altar. The faces of the lost flickered before her, their silent cries urged her on. "Blood must pay for truth," she repeated aloud, her voice steadying in the growing maelstrom. As she did, the air shifted, electrifying her skin. The shadows recoiled, sensing the power of her intent. With intentionality coursing through her veins, she pulled from within, summoning courage she never knew existed. In that moment, fate seemed to pause. "I release you," Rachel cried. "I choose to break this cycle. I choose to free you." Her voice echoed through the chamber, fortifying her resolve against the darkness. The shadows quivered, ominously gathering around her, echoing with a raw howl of both danger and despair. "Join us," they beckoned, a mockery tinged with desperation. "The cost is your essence." "No," she shouted. "I'm not afraid anymore. You don't own me." With her heart racing, she took a deep breath, plunging her hands into the core of the ancient altar. It felt warm, powerful, an energy that coursed through her as she began the ritual, intertwining her fate with those who had suffered before her. She recited an incantation, allowing the words to flow through her. The shadows shrieked, churning violently as they fought against the light she summoned. But Rachel pressed on. Each word blazed brighter, illuminating the darkness like fire igniting in a cold night. "I release you all," she cried, pushing the very essence of her being into the incantation, anchoring herself to the moment. The shadows screeched one last time before collapsing inward, drawn into the altar like moths to flame. As the shadows fused and dissipated, silence blanketed the room. A light bloomed around Rachel, warm and golden, illuminating the faces of those trapped behind the veil, once suffering souls now smiling with relief. She felt a surge of warmth envelop her, filling her with an unmistakable peace, a release from the weight she had carried. Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she watched the spirits fade, their burdens lifted. She had done it. She had broken the curse, setting them free. The Caldwell Estate, once a prison, now began to hum with the promise of renewal. Rachel stepped back, the air clearing, the darkness lifting. She took a deep breath, the overwhelming sense of dread evaporating like morning mist under sunlight. The past had lost its grip, but still, something lingered, a lesson inscribed forever in her heart. She turned and walked back through the corridor as the warmth began to envelop every cold shadow of the estate. It was done. The cycle of despair had ended, and with it, Rachel's new beginning began. As she stepped outside, the sun broke through the clouds, shining brightly over the Caldwell estate. Rachel felt lighter, renewed, with Annie and Jake waiting on the porch, their eyes sparkling in the daylight. With a smile, she embraced them, finally free from the chains of the past. Now was her time to thrive. The shadows had dispersed. The burden had lifted. The curse was no more, the Caldwell legacy had been unveiled, and with it, hope triumphantly prevailed. And now, my friends, if you followed Rachel's harrowing journey to uncover the dark secrets of the Caldwell estate and witnessed her brave battle against despair, it's time to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread the word about these incredible stories. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Rachel's courageous journey. I can't wait to hear what you think. Finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps these tales alive, and only true fans understand the importance of sharing the experience. Let's keep the adventure going.